Close your eyes, dear listeners, and let your imagination carry you to distant times when the world was shrouded in mysteries and the sea whispered stories lost in the depths of centuries. Today we embark on a journey to the world of ancient Atlantis, a legendary land whose tale has stirred minds and hearts for millennia. This story, like a gentle lullaby, will envelop you in warmth and peace, helping you relax and drift into the realm of dreams. Breathe deeply and let the tale begin. Picture a boundless ocean, its waters shimmering under the stars, like a mirror reflecting eternity. The waves lap softly, recounting tales of the past, of a land that was lost but never forgotten. Somewhere, in this vast expanse, it is said, lay an island the ancients called Atlantis. It was not merely a land, but a realized dream, a place where humanity and nature lived in harmony, where the divine touched the earthly. Atlantis is a symbol of a lost paradise, an ideal that humanity strives for, but which slips away like sand through fingers. Its name resonates like an echo of a distant past, calling us to peer into the depths of time and perhaps find answers to questions that trouble us today. Our story begins with the great philosopher Plato, who lived in ancient Greece over 2,000 years ago, in the 4th century BCE. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BCE, he first introduced the world to Atlantis, crafting a tale that became one of history's greatest enigmas. Plato described Atlantis as a mighty empire that existed 9,000 years before his time, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a place we now associate with the Strait of Gibraltar. This empire, he said, was not only vast in size but also incredibly advanced, surpassing all known civilizations of its era in art, science, and military might. Plato claimed the story of Atlantis reached him through a chain of sages, starting with Solon, an Athenian lawgiver who lived in the 6th century BCE. While traveling in Egypt, Solon visited the city of Sais, where priests of the Temple of Neith, whom the Greeks identified with Athena, shared ancient records with him. These priests claimed their ancestors knew of Atlantis, a great island that was a hub of trade, science, and culture. They said Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined, serving as a bridge between the known world and uncharted lands beyond the horizon. Its lands brimmed with riches, and its people possessed wisdom that seemed almost divine. The priests told Solon that Atlantis was blessed by the gods, and its story began with Poseidon, the lord of the seas. According to myth, Poseidon fell in love with a mortal woman named Cleito, daughter of Evenor and Leucippe, the island's first inhabitants. To protect his beloved, Poseidon created an island for her, encircled by 3 rings of water and 2 rings of land, as if embracing it with his waves. These rings, carved with divine precision, became the foundation of Atlantis's unique structure, making it both impregnable and beautiful. Cleito bore Poseidon 5 sets of twins, 10 sons who became the first kings of Atlantis. Their names, Atlas, Gadiras, Ampheres, Evaemon, Menesius, Autochthon, Elasippus, Mestor, Azaeus, and Diaprepes, rang like a hymn to the island's might, and their descendants ruled with wisdom sanctified by divine origin. But was Atlantis real? This question remains one of history's greatest mysteries, captivating scholars, philosophers, and dreamers alike. Some researchers believe Plato invented the story as a philosophical allegory to illustrate how pride and greed can destroy even an ideal state. They note that Plato's texts lack concrete evidence, and his descriptions may be a metaphor for Athens or other cities facing decline. As a student of Socrates, Plato often used dialogues to explore moral and political ideas, and Atlantis could be a fictional example illustrating his philosophy. Other scholars believe Atlantis was real and its traces can be found in the world. They point to archaeological discoveries, such as the ruins of the Minoan civilization on Crete, which flourished around 2000 BCE. The Minoans had an advanced culture, building palaces with plumbing and frescoes, and traded across the Mediterranean. Their sudden disappearance, possibly due to a volcanic eruption on the island of Santorini around 1600 BCE, echoes Atlantis's fate. Excavations on Santorini, where cities like Akrotiri were found buried under ash, fuel these theories. Some suggest Plato may have heard distorted accounts of the Minoans, transforming them into the myth of Atlantis. There are bolder hypotheses. Some researchers search for Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, or even Antarctica, suggesting it could be hidden under ice after a global cataclysm. Others link it to the Bermuda Triangle, where ships and Amanita plains vanish, without a trace, hinting at remnants of ancient technology. Geologists study underwater ridges like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge for signs of sunken lands, while historians analyze myths from Egyptian to Mesoamerican cultures that speak of great cities lost to the sea. But the ocean keeps its secrets, and no scholar has found definitive proof of the island's existence. Whether Atlantis was real or not, its story continues to inspire. It speaks of humanity's dream to create a world where beauty, wisdom, and justice reign supreme. It reminds us that even the greatest achievements can be lost if we forget humility and harmony. Atlantis is a mirror reflecting our hopes and fears, our dreams and mistakes. It calls us to ponder what makes a civilization great. How do we preserve it for future generations? And how do we balance ambition with respect for the world around us? This legend is more than a tale of the past. It lives in books, paintings, songs, and in everyone who gazes at the sea and dreams of lost worlds. It inspired poets like Homer, who sang of distant islands, and philosophers who pondered the nature of power. It lives in each of us when we strive for something greater, for a world where good triumphs over evil and beauty becomes eternal. Atlantis is an invitation to dream, to reflect, to journey inward, where we may find not only answers, but new questions. Yet Atlantis is also a warning. Plato recounts that its people, blinded by pride, forgot divine laws, and their greed led to catastrophe. This story prompts us to reflect on our own civilizations, how we use resources, treat one another, and respect nature. Perhaps Atlantis is not just the past, but a future we can avoid if we are wiser. Close your eyes and imagine standing on the deck of a ship, sailing over calm waters. The wind gently brushes your face, and ahead, in the mist, the outline of an island emerges. This is Atlantis, a land of mysteries and wonders. You feel a thrill, the anticipation of discovery, but also peace, knowing this story will guide you into the world of dreams. Let this image linger as we prepare to step onto its shores, where green plains and radiant cities await. We are only beginning our journey, dear listeners. Ahead lies an encounter with Atlantis itself, its fertile lands, majestic temples, and canals reflecting the stars. Let the vision of the island bathed in morning light lead you to the next chapter, where we will see what this land, blessed by the gods, looked like. Breathe slowly, relax, and let the story flow on, like a wave carrying you to new horizons. Good night. Dear listeners, our ship approaches the shores of Atlantis, and the mist clears, revealing an island of legend. Close your eyes and imagine stepping onto soft earth, where the scent of blooming gardens mingles with the salty breath of the sea. Today we explore the geography and architecture of Atlantis its natural riches, cities and temples crafted with divine precision. Breathe deeply, relax, and let this scene carry you into a world of dreams where each step unveils new wonders. Atlantis, as Plato describes, was a land of abundance, where nature and human ingenuity blended in harmony like a melody sung by wind and waves. The island lay in warm waters, surrounded by a vast ocean, its climate mild like eternal spring. Fertile plains stretched to the horizon, covered with golden wheat fields, olive groves, and vineyards yielding fruit as sweet as honey. These plains, irrigated by rivers, produced harvests that could feed thousands, and their beauty inspired poets to compose odes to a land gifted by the gods. The hills of Atlantis, dotted with flowers, rose to the sky like green waves, frozen in motion. Orchids, lilies, and rare herbs grew on their slopes, their fragrances filling the air. Rivers, originating in the mountains, flowed to the sea, sparkling. Like liquid glass, their waters so clear that stars reflected in them even by day. These rivers nourished fields, watered gardens, and filled lakes where swans and blooming lilies floated, creating scenes worthy of divine halls. Fishermen, whose boats glided over these waters, spoke of fish with silver scales and pearls found in the depths. The island's mountains, cloaked in dense forests, were home to wild animals, deer, boars, and rare birds with vibrant plumage, whose songs rang like music. Cedars, cypresses, and oaks on the slopes provided timber for ships, palaces, and bridges. In the mountain depths, they mined precious gems, emeralds, sapphires, amethysts, and orichalcum, a mysterious metal that legend says glowed like fire and was more valuable than gold. Orichalcum adorned temples, weapons, and jewelry, its light said to enchant anyone who gazed at it too long. The most striking feature of Atlantis was its structure. Plato describes the island as a series of concentric rings, 3 rings of water, alternating with 2 rings of land, as if drawn by a celestial architect. These rings, created by Poseidon to protect Cleito, were not only a defensive system but a symbol of order and balance. The outermost ring of land was the widest, its terrain rich with forests teeming with wildlife and pastures where sheep and cattle grazed. Here lived farmers and shepherds, their villages nestled in greenery, their wooden and stone homes adorned with carved patterns depicting harvests and festivals. The inner rings were narrower, but their beauty grew with each step. Toward the center, on the second ring of land sprawled gardens with exotic fruits, pomegranates, figs, oranges, whose aromas mingled with the sea's scent. Here stood artisans' workshops weaving fabrics soft as clouds, crafting pearl jewelry, and creating clay pottery painted with mythic scenes. These workshops were the heart of trade, their goods shipped to distant lands, glorifying the skill of the Atlanteans. Canals linking the rings were wide enough for ships to pass, their banks adorned with statues of sea gods, nymphs, and dolphins, carved from marble and coated in gold. These statues, crafted by master sculptors, seemed alive, their gemstone eyes glinting in the sun. The canals were not only pathways for ships but lifelines, irrigating fields and gardens, their waters considered blessed, bestowed by Poseidon himself. Bridges spanning the canals were marvels of engineering. Paved with white stone, they gleamed. In the sunlight, their arches decorated with mosaics of stars, waves, and sea creatures. Wagons drawn by horses and pedestrians in vibrant linen tunics dyed in sunset hues crossed these bridges. The bridges connected not just lands but people, fostering a sense of unity that was the heart of Atlantis. Each bridge bore a name tied to myth, like the Dolphin Bridge, named for the statues guarding its entrance. At the island's center rose a sacred hill home to the main city of Atlantis, a radiant capital whose beauty stunned the imagination. The city was encircled by the final ring of water, fed by canals where ships with scarlet sails glided, laden with goods from distant lands. The city's streets were paved with smooth, polished slabs, and its squares featured fountains with water sparkling in the sunlight. Homes built from white, red, and black stone, quarried on the island, had rooftop gardens where residents grew flowers, grapes, and herbs, their scents filling the air. The heart of the city was the Temple of Poseidon, towering on the hill like a beacon calling to souls. Its walls were clad in gold and silver, its inner halls adorned with orichalcum, whose glow created an aura of magic. Above the temple stood a statue of Poseidon on a chariot drawn by 6 winged horses, its golden gleam visible for miles, guiding sailors home. Around the temple sprawled gardens with golden fruits, apples, pomegranates, peaches, said to be gifts from the gods. Springs bubbling from the earth flowed with warm and cold streams, their waters believed to heal body and soul. The palaces of the nobility surrounded the temple, their walls adorned with mosaics depicting myths of the sea, stars, and heroes. Each palace was a masterpiece, with courtyards where fountains murmured and halls decorated with frescoes recounting ancestral deeds. Crystal-lit halls made night seem absent. Even the modest homes of artisans and merchants were beautiful, with windows framed in colored glass and doors carved with wave and star patterns. The city's ports welcomed ships from across the world, while shipyards built vessels with bronze-reinforced hulls to withstand storms. These ships, adorned with carvings and brightly colored sails, were Atlantis's pride. The outer ring's walls, clad in bronze, shone like mirrors, reflecting sky and sea. Towers atop them housed guards watching the horizon, protecting the island's peace. These high, impregnable walls were not just defenses but symbols of Atlantis's strength and confidence in its greatness. Yet behind this strength and beauty lay the lives of its people, individuals whose dreams, hopes, and labor made the island legendary. Their voices, songs, and stories filled the air, creating a world that seemed eternal. Close your eyes and imagine walking the streets of this city. You feel the warmth of the stones beneath your feet, hear the splash of water in the canals, and breathe in the scent of blooming gardens. In the distance, the Temple of Poseidon glows, its light calling like a star. This place feels like paradise, but beneath its beauty lie the stories of its people, their customs, their lives. Let this image linger as we gently transition to the tale of Atlantis's people, how they lived, loved, and dreamed under the radiant sky of their island. Breathe slowly and let sleep softly embrace you, carrying you to new horizons where the voices of the Atlanteans will share their stories. Good night. Dear listeners, we remain in the radiant city of Atlantis, where temples reflect the sun's light and canals softly hum their melodies. Close your eyes and imagine walking through bustling streets, surrounded by children's laughter and the aromas of fresh fruit from the market. Today, we delve into the lives of the Atlanteans, their society, culture, beliefs, and everyday joys that made this island legendary. Breathe deeply, relax, and let this story carry you into a world of dreams where every moment brims with beauty. Atlantis's society was complex and harmonious, like a mosaic assembled from countless vibrant pieces, each vital to the whole. Plato tells us the island was divided into 10 kingdoms, each ruled by a descendant of Poseidon and Cleito. These kings were not only rulers but spiritual leaders, guardians of divine law, linking humanity to the gods. Their names, like Atlas, the first king whose name the island bore, and Gadyrus, whose kingdom was famed for its ports, echoed in hymns and prayers, their authority sanctified by divine lineage. Each kingdom had its own capital, fields, ports, and temples, but all united under a common council that met in the central temple of Poseidon. Every 5 or 6 years, the kings gathered for a sacred ritual, the heart of their unity. They ventured into the temple gardens where sacred bulls with gold-ribboned horns grazed, and captured one using only ropes and bronze knives to preserve the rite's purity. The bull was sacrificed on the altar, its blood mixed with wine and drunk from golden goblets as the kings swore to uphold justice, wisdom, and loyalty to Poseidon's laws. These oaths, spoken under the stars, were not mere words, but a sacred covenant binding the Atlanteans to their god and each other. Beyond the kings, Atlantis' society included priests, warriors, artisans, farmers, and merchants, each contributing to the island's prosperity. Priests held a special role as mediators between people and gods. They performed rituals to appease Poseidon, read omens in the stars, the flight of birds, and the movement of clouds. Their knowledge, stored in secret sanctuaries, encompassed astronomy, medicine, and, rumor has it, the secrets of communing with sea spirits. Priests trained the young, passing down ancestral wisdom, and even kings heeded their counsel, especially in troubled times. Clad in white linen robes adorned with orichalcum, they shone in the temples, their prayers sounding like music. Atlantis' warriors were not only protectors, but symbols of honor. Their armor, decorated with bronze and orichalcum, gleamed in the sun, their shields depicting battles with sea monsters like the giant kraken sailors spoke of. They guarded ports, escorted trade caravans, and, legend says, fought pirates threatening ships. Their primary role was maintaining peace, and they often joined rituals honoring Poseidon, showcasing strength and loyalty. Young warriors faced trials like swimming through stormy waters or hunting in the mountains to prove their valor. Artisans and farmers formed the backbone of society. Blacksmiths crafted tools and jewelry using orichalcum and gold, their hammers ringing in workshops, blending with the canal's hum. Weavers produced fabrics soft as clouds, dyed in sunset and sea hues, worn even in distant lands. Jewelers carved amulets and rings encrusted with pearls and gems, each telling a story. Farmers grew wheat, barley, olives, and fruits, their gardens. So beautiful, they seemed extensions of temple groves. They sang during harvests, their melodies passed down generations, sounding like hymns to the earth. Merchants, whose ships roamed the oceans, were Atlantis' eyes and ears. They brought spices, silks, and gems, trading them for the island's wine, olive oil, and orichalcum goods. Their tales of distant lands, deserts where sand shone like gold, jungles with fire-feathered birds, inspired poets and artists. Merchants often became mythic heroes like the sailor Taris, who found an island where trees bore pearl fruits. Atlantis' culture was as rich as its lands. The Atlanteans were renowned for their art, reflecting their love for beauty and harmony. Their music, it said, was so enchanting it could calm storms or lull wild beasts. Musicians played lyres, flutes, drums, and harps, crafting melodies that echoed the sea's voice or the wind's whisper. During festivals honoring Poseidon, music drew crowds, its sounds mingling with the canal's splash. Children learned to sing from a young age, their clear, ringing voices filling squares and temples. Poetry was another treasure of Atlantis. Poets composed verses about gods, heroes, love, and the sea, their words recorded on clay tablets, gold, plates, and carved stones. These poems were recited at feasts, in schools, and in palaces, known even by simple farmers. One famous myth told of a hero named Elias who descended to an underwater realm to retrieve Poseidon's pearl from a sea dragon. His story inspired young Atlanteans to great deeds and reminded them of faith's power. Artists created frescoes depicting myths and daily life, fishermen returning with their catch, dancing girls, sea gods riding dolphins. Using paints from minerals and plants, their paintings seemed alive, as if figures could step from the walls. Sculptors crafted statues of gods, heroes, and animals, each a masterpiece. Marble sea spirits stood in ports, while garden nymphs surrounded by flowers bore expressions of peace and wisdom. Education in Atlantis was open to all, from kings' children to fishermen's sons. In schools, often attached to temples, students learned reading, writing, arithmetic, astronomy, to understand the stars, and mathematics to build canals and palaces. Rhetoric and philosophy taught clear thinking and persuasive speech, while myths and legends fostered love for history. Teachers, often priests, shared tales of the island's origins, Poseidon and his gifts, embedding these stories in every Atlantean soul. Children were encouraged to ask questions: why the sea stirs, why stars move, why people dream, making them wiser. Daily life was filled with beauty and order. Atlanteans wore soft, brightly colored tunics, azure, purple, gold, adorned with gold bracelets, pearl necklaces, and gemstone rings. Even simple homes had courtyards with fountains and flowers where families gathered for dinner, sharing stories and songs. Festivals honoring Poseidon were times of joy. People danced under the stars, sang hymns, and offered gifts at temples: fruits, wine, orichalcum figurines. One such assumed festival, the Day of Waves, featured a procession to the sea where residents tossed flowers into the water, thanking Poseidon for his protection. Close your eyes and picture yourself in an Atlantean square. You hear children laughing, playing by a fountain, and see a woman in a blue tunic carrying a basket of pomegranates. Music drifts from afar, and above the city, the temple of Poseidon shines, its light beckoning like a star. This is a world where everyone feels part of a greater whole, where life is a dance of beauty and harmony. Let this image envelop you as we move to the story of Atlantis's golden age, a time of glory and might when the island shone brighter than the sun. Breathe slowly, and let sleep gently embrace you, carrying you to new horizons where stars and sea will reveal its greatness. Good night, dear listeners. We linger in the heart of Atlantis, where streets buzz with life and temples gleam with gold, reflecting the sun's light. Close your eyes and imagine standing on a bridge, watching ships glide through canals, their sails crimson as the sun set. Now I'll tell you of Atlantis's golden age, a time when this island reached the pinnacle of its greatness, a beacon to the world. Breathe deeply, relax, and let this story carry you into a world of dreams where anything is possible. In its era of glory, Atlantis was not only beautiful, but astonishingly advanced, its achievements seeming miraculous even to the gods. Its people mastered science, art, and trade, their civilization shining like a star in the night. Astronomy was a cornerstone of Atlantean knowledge. On hills stood observatories of white stone, adorned with star mosaics where priests and scholars studied the heavens. They mapped constellations, predicted eclipses, seasons, and even comet paths, believed to carry divine messages. Their calendars were so precise that each year began with a festival honoring the stars, when the entire island gathered to gaze at the glittering night sky. Mathematics and engineering underpinned their prosperity. The Atlanteans built intricate irrigation systems, transforming plains into blooming gardens. Canals crisscrossing the island watered fields, nourished orchards, and served as highways for ships. These canals, lined with stone and decorated with dolphin and starfish mosaics, were deep enough for the largest vessels, their banks guarded by sea god statues with sapphire eyes gleaming in the sun. Bridges of stone and wood were so sturdy they withstood hurricanes, their arches carved with patterns that seemed extensions of nature. The Atlanteans invented water-powered mechanisms to lift loads, open gates, and operate fountains adorning squares. Temples and palaces had complex pipe systems delivering water everywhere, and some buildings, rumor has it, even had elevators to upper floors. These technologies, blending simplicity and genius, made life convenient and beautiful, freeing the Atlanteans to focus on art and wisdom. Schools taught children these mechanisms' principles, and young engineers built model bridges and canals, dreaming of creating something even grander. Trade was the heartbeat of Atlantis' economy. Ports on the outer ring welcomed ships from distant lands, bringing silks from the east, spices from islands, gems from deserts, and exotic fruits unknown even to the Atlanteans. In return, they exported wine, olive oil, gold jewelry, and orichalcum, valued above gold for its radiant glow. Their fleet of hundreds of ships was the world's mightiest, their sailors navigating oceans others deemed cursed. Legends say Atlanteans traded with lands beyond the Great Western Sea, where the sun sets in golden splendor, bringing back strange metals and plants like a tree whose wood resisted fire. Crystals mined deep within the island held a special place in their technology. These crystals, clear as glass and glowing like stars, lit temples, palaces, and streets. At night, Atlantean cities shone with soft light, and travelers said the island never slept. Some priests claimed the crystals stored sunlight and could heal body and mind, but these secrets were known to few. In temples, crystals were set in gold frames, their glow creating an aura of divine presence. One myth spoke of a crystal that could reveal the future, kept in a secret sanctuary accessible only to high priests. Spirituality remained the foundation of Atlantean life. They believed their prosperity was Poseidon's gift, every victory a result of his blessing. Priests performed rituals to appease the sea, chanting prayers and burning incense whose scent rose to the heavens. Farmers offered first fruits at temples, baskets of grapes, olives, pomegranates, while fishermen blessed their nets for bountiful catches. Merchants prayed for protection before voyages, and warriors consecrated their shields before battles. This faith in the divine gave their lives meaning and unity, and even in daily tasks they saw Poseidon's hand. Art flourished in this era, reflecting Atlantis' soul. Poets wrote odes to stars, sea, and love, their words ringing at feasts, in temples, and on squares. One renowned poet, Lyris, penned an epic about the island's creation, describing how Poseidon raised Atlantis from the waves to gift it to humanity. This epic, thousands of lines long, was recited at festivals, its verses known even to children. Musicians wove melodies that seemed crafted from wind and waves, their concerts drawing thousands. Frescoes on palace walls depicted scenes of peace and triumph, ships returning to port, dancing priests, children playing with dolphins. Statues of gods and heroes in gardens and ports inspired residents to great deeds and recalled their land's greatness. Education was universal, and the Atlanteans prided themselves on their wisdom. Children learned not only reading and writing, but also nature, stars, and sea laws. They studied philosophy to ponder life's meaning and rhetoric to share their thoughts. Teachers shared myths of Poseidon, heroes who saved the island, and stars, said to be the souls of the first Atlanteans. These stories instilled love for their homeland and a sense of duty. Schools held competitions where children built ship models, wrote poems, or solved math problems, with winners receiving laurel wreaths, symbols of wisdom. Daily life was vibrant. Atlanteans wore brightly colored tunics and adorned themselves with jewelry, each piece a work of art. Their homes had gardens with flowers and fruits and courtyards with murmuring fountains. Families gathered for dinner, sharing stories, and evenings ended with a song or tale. Festivals, such as the Day of Waves, were times of unity, when the entire island gathered by the sea to thank Poseidon. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in an Atlantean port. Ships arrive with treasures, astronomers discuss stars, and children laugh, playing by a fountain. This is a time when everything seems possible, a world of hopes and dreams. But even in this brilliance, shadows begin to emerge, foreshadowing change. Let this image carry you as we move to the story of Atlantis' decline, its fall, and the tragedy that changed everything. Breathe slowly and let sleep softly embrace you, carrying you to new horizons where the sea will reveal the island's fate. Good night. Dear listeners, we stand at the threshold of change in Atlantis' story, where the glow of its temples begins to fade under a darkening sky and the sea whispers of coming storms. Close your eyes and imagine standing on a hill, gazing at a city whose golden towers still shine, but the air carries a sense of impending doom. Now I'll tell of Atlantis' twilight, how this great civilization fell under the weight of its mistakes, leaving only legends. Breathe deeply, relax, and let this story carry you into a world of dreams where even tragedy bears lessons and peace. The golden age of Atlantis was a time of glory, when its ships roamed the oceans and its temples shone like stars. Its people, once wise and just, built a world that seemed eternal. But, as history teaches, nothing lasts forever, and even the greatest empires can fall. Plato recounts that over time, the Atlanteans' hearts changed, their once pure souls darkened. Wealth, once a source of generosity, bred greed. Power, a symbol of wisdom, fueled pride. They began to see themselves not as servants of the gods, but as their equals, marking the beginning of their end. The kings who once swore justice in Poseidon's temple now quarreled over lands, ports, and riches. Their palaces grew ever grander, with halls adorned with gold, orichalcum, and gems, but they lacked the harmony that defined Atlantis. They built new temples, not for prayer, but to display power, their altars empty of offerings and incense. The kings, once united under the stars to renew their oaths, now spent their time at feasts where wine flowed freely and songs drowned out the priests' voices. They forgot the laws their ancestors carved on golden plates, their decisions growing ever more selfish. The Atlanteans, blinded by wealth, began to neglect the nature that sustained their island. They felled forests on mountain slopes to build new palaces and ships, leaving bare hills where birds once sang. Rivers, once crystal clear, grew murky with workshop runoff and canals, the island's pride, clogged with debris. Farmers, chasing larger harvests, depleted the soil, and gardens with golden fruits began to wither. Fishermen noticed smaller catches, silver-scaled fish vanishing from the waters. Yet these signs were ignored, and the people continued to celebrate. As if nothing had changed, priests, keepers of wisdom, warned of Poseidon's wrath. They saw omens in the stars, constellations shifting, comets falling like divine tears. They heard warnings in the strengthening wind and the cries of birds, fleeing the island in flocks. Oracles, whose voices once inspired, spoke of blood-red sunsets, shadows moving underwater, and a trembling earth. One oracle, the elder Larissa, foretold that the sea would rise if the Atlanteans did not return to their roots, but her words were met with mockery. The people, intoxicated by their greatness, held feasts where music drowned out prophecies and dancing lasted until dawn. The youth, raised in luxury, forgot old customs. They no longer sang Poseidon's hymns, offered gifts at temples, or listened to elders' tales of the island's origins. Instead, they dreamed of conquests, new lands to subdue, and riches to amass. Merchants, once proud of honesty, began to deceive, selling fake orichalcum or diluted wine. Artisans, whose works were masterpieces crafted for profit, not art, their creations losing soul. Even poets whose verses inspired wrote odes to the wealthy, not the sea and stars. Nature spoke louder than the priests. The earth trembled more, often cracks appearing in bridges, walls, and even temples whose golden plates fell like tears. Volcanoes, dormant for centuries, awoke, spewing ash that hid the sun, lava flowing down slopes, destroying forests and villages. The sea, once Atlantis's protector, grew restless, fishermen reporting strange currents dragging their boats, waves rising without wind, and dark shapes flickering in the depths. One fisherman, returning to port, claimed he saw a giant shadow, underwater like a dragon, but his tale was dismissed as fantasy. Some sages, like the philosopher Iron, tried to restore wisdom. Iron wrote treatises urging the Atlanteans to recall harmony, how their ancestors lived in balance with nature and gods. He said Poseidon gifted them the island not to destroy it, but to be an example to the world. But his words were lost in the din of feasts heard only by a few, mostly elders and children. Children, still faithful, gathered at temples praying for forgiveness, but their voices were too faint to change fate. Plato describes Atlantis's final days as a time of terror and chaos. In a single night and day, he says, the island was destroyed. Earthquakes split the land, and massive waves taller than the highest towers crashed over the rings of land. Temples collapsed, their golden walls falling into canals that overflowed, sweeping away homes, statues, and people. Palaces filled with laughter just yesterday were swallowed by water, and gardens with golden fruits vanished beneath the waves. Volcanoes erupted with such force that the sky turned black with ash, lava scorching plains into deserts. Residents fled to the hills, seeking salvation, but the sea showed no mercy. Mothers clutched children, men tried to build rafts, but the waves were faster. Priests, standing in Poseidon's temple, sang a final prayer as water flooded the sanctuary, extinguishing the crystal's light. The statue of Poseidon, shining for centuries, fell, its fragments sinking into the abyss. Atlantis, once a radiant star, vanished beneath the waves, leaving only bubbles on the surface and a silence louder than any scream. What caused this catastrophe? Plato says it was divine punishment for the Atlanteans' pride and greed, who forgot sacred laws. Some scholars suggest a natural disaster, a volcanic eruption like Santorini's, or a tectonic shift triggering a tsunami. Others see a combination: volcanic activity, earthquakes, and perhaps human neglect weakening the island. Hypotheses of a meteor strike or experiments with crystals unleashing uncontrollable energy remain speculative. Regardless of the cause, Atlantis vanished, taking its secrets, crystals, and songs. The sea closed over it, leaving only legends to tell its story. Yet this tragedy is not just an end. It teaches that greatness comes with responsibility, that beauty demands care, that harmony is a gift to cherish. Atlantis, even in its fall, left a lesson echoing through the ages. Close your eyes and imagine Atlantis's final moments. You stand on a hill, watching waves engulf the city. The temple of Poseidon still shines, but its light fades under a dark sky. This is a moment of sorrow, but also a lesson about how even the greatest dreams can dissolve if humility is forgotten. Let this image softly fade as we move to the final chapter, where we'll learn how Atlantis lives on in us, in our hearts and dreams. Breathe slowly and let sleep gently embrace you, carrying you to new horizons where the legend becomes eternal. Good night, dear listeners. We've reached the end of our journey, but Atlantis doesn't leave us. Close your eyes and imagine standing on a seashore, gazing at the horizon where this legendary island once shone, now hidden beneath the waves. Now we'll speak of Atlantis's legacy, how its story continues to live in our hearts, inspiring, teaching, and calling us to dream. Breathe deeply, relax, and let this story lull you into a world of dreams where past and future merge into one. Atlantis sank beneath the waves, but its spirit endures like a star, shining even in daylight, hidden behind clouds. Its story, first told by Plato over 2,000 years ago, became a beacon for generations. In the Middle Ages, alchemists sought its secrets in ancient manuscripts, dreaming of finding orichalcum or crystals said to turn lead to gold or heal diseases. They saw Atlantis not just as a lost island, but as a symbol of knowledge humanity could reclaim with enough wisdom. In the Renaissance, artists painted its radiant cities with golden temples and star-reflecting canals. Leonardo da Vinci, whose sketches brim with enigmas, drew underwater machines, perhaps inspired by Atlantean myths. Poets like Dante and Petrarch referenced lost lands in their verses, seeing them as metaphors for the soul's quest for paradise. Atlantis became a symbol of a lost ideal, a world where beauty and wisdom reign, inspiring people to dream of better days. In modern times, scholars and explorers sought Atlantis in the real world. In the 19th century, Ignatius Donnelly's book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, claimed it was the cradle of civilization, spawning Egyptian, Mesoamerican, and other cultures. Though controversial, his ideas sparked archaeological interest, leading to studies of the Mediterranean, Atlantic, and Caribbean for traces of the island. Excavations on Crete and Santorini uncovering Minoan ruins buried under ash around 1600 BCE were pivotal. Minoan palaces with frescoes and plumbing echoed Plato's descriptions, and many saw them as echoes of Atlantis. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the search intensified. Underwater archaeologists explored the seabed with sonars and submersibles seeking sunken cities. In the 2000s, researchers found odd structures off Bimini in the Caribbean, dubbed the Bimini Road, which some called Atlantean remnants, though geologists deemed them natural. Others studied satellite images of Antarctica, suggesting the island might lie under ice after a global cataclysm. Theories about the Bermuda Triangle, where ships vanish, added mystique, hinting at ancient technologies or portals left by the Atlanteans. Yet Atlantis is more than archaeology, it's a cultural symbol. Writers like Jules Verne, in novels like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, sent heroes to underwater worlds inspired by Atlantis. Arthur Conan Doyle wrote of lost lands where time stood still, and modern authors like Dan Brown weave it into mysteries. Films and series revive its image as a crystal-lit underwater city or a civilization with advanced technology. Music, inspired by Atlantis, echoes the sea, evoking nostalgia for something long lost, with composers like Vangelis crafting melodies that feel like songs of a sunken island. Atlantis has shaped philosophy and science. Scholars studying ancient civilizations ask, could the Atlanteans have held knowledge we've lost? Were their crystals energy sources akin to modern tech? These questions drive research in physics, geology, and alternative energy. Philosophers see Atlantis as a metaphor for human nature, our drive for greatness and vulnerability to temptation. It teaches that progress must align with wisdom, or it becomes destructive. Atlantis's legacy is also a lesson about civilizations. It reminds us that greatness carries responsibility, that beauty needs care, that harmony is a gift to protect. Its story warns that pride and greed can destroy even the most beautiful world, but it also offers hope that we can learn from past mistakes. It prompts reflection on our societies, how we use resources, treat nature, and relate to one another. Perhaps Atlantis is not just the past, but a future we can shape or lose. Atlantis lives in everyone who dreams of a better world. It's in the poet writing of love, the scientist studying stars, the child building a sandcastle. It's in us when we seek harmony, learn from errors, or gaze at the sea, feeling a connection to something greater. Atlantis hasn't vanished. It sleeps, waiting for us to find it in our hearts. Its crystals, songs, and dreams live in us, and every time we create something beautiful, we revive it. This story is more than a tale of a lost land. It's an invitation to consider what we'll leave behind, what legends will be told of us. Atlantis teaches that beauty and wisdom are treasures to guard, that harmony is the path to eternity. It calls us to be better, dream bolder, love deeper, and perhaps in the depths of our dreams we'll find it again, shining as in its days of glory. Close your eyes and imagine sailing over a calm sea. Beneath the waves, Atlantis sleeps, but its light shines in you. Let this story be your lullaby, soothing you into the world of dreams. Think of the legacy you wish to leave, and let those thoughts dissolve like stars at dawn. Its temples, canals, and the dreams of its people remain with you, like a warm memory. Dear listeners, our journey is complete, but Atlantis lives in your hearts. Let its images, gleaming temples, quiet canals, the voices of its people, guide you into a world of dreams where all is possible. Breathe slowly, relax, and rest, knowing this legend, like the sea, will always be with you. Good night.